Veronica Garcia.
When you realized that you had to leave Trinidad, how did that feel, and what did it take for you to manifest that into a reality?
Well, leaving Trinidad, I was excited. It was a little bit of bittersweet because I was leaving the people that I cared most of all, which was my two brothers and my sister. But I was excited because given our background and our lack of resources and my desire to further education, I desperately needed to get out.
Gotcha. And when you say desperately needed to get out,
I had a cousin whose name was Hilda, who had got me my second job right out of high school. And I talked to her about going. But moreover, I really wanted to get out because I was in a home that was very strict.
I leave the whole house and go. My children don't want me no more. The girls in black is white and thing. And when I talk, they start to sing. Mama, look a boo-boo. They shout. The mother told them, shut up your mouth. That is your father. Oh no. My daddy can't be ugly, so shut your mouth, go away. Mama, look a boo-boo day. Shut your mouth, go away.
Didn't have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things to explore because it was super religious home. Coming from this strict religious home, which was just that, religious, as opposed to having a relationship with Jesus Christ. We knew of God, we knew we had to pray. Why we were doing all these things, there was no really explanation about it. So it was just a process. So I really didn't have a relationship with Jesus Christ at the time. I just routinely went through, you get up in the morning, you say your prayers, you went to church because your family said you had to go. Coming from the kind of culture that I came from, where as long as you were home, you abide by the laws of the home, and our laws were very strict then.
A chicka chick boom, chick boom. A chicka chick boom, chick boom. Announces you're in the room with the Trinidad lady. A chicka chick boom, chick boom. A chicka chick boom, chick boom. Your ticker goes boom, boom, boom for the Trinidad lady.
It's only that I do what I love.
So going to the movies, going to parties, going out and stuff like that wasn't part of my routine. It was church, school, work. And so a number of factors made me gotta get out before I really wanted to, without really a plan. So instead of coming out to United States, I went to Latin America.
When you got to Latin America, first stop was Venezuela.
Correct. Because one, it was cheaper with the airfare. Two, it was closer to home. It was my period of adjusting before I came way out to United States. So it was just really searching. I was searching and desperate to get out of that confinement at home. So that was my desperation, to get away from that and just do some of the things that normal young people do. Out to United States, actually my deepest desire was to study law, and I couldn't see studying law in Trinidad. simply because the resources weren't there, the opportunities weren't there for me, coming from a family that didn't have much of any financial resources. So getting out was my outlet and my approach to getting into law.
So we're going to switch gears for a bit. I want you to tell me about Payne Weber and the car accident.
Well, it was one Sunday morning coming from church services right in the neighborhood when some relatively young, possibly teenagers, unlicensed, driving a car and ran the light and ran into the vehicle that I was in. And of course, on the passenger side, I was seated and I got the impact of it and took like about 18 to 20 stitches in my head, right over my left eye, which caused me to be out of work for a couple of months. I was really bagged up, bruised up, and had to be out of work for a while. Going back to work was sort of a challenge because when I got there, which was really, really soon before I had my promotion to area manager and becoming an AVP, and going back right after the accident, there was a number of changes. New boss, someone was placed in my position, and was a whole transition. So the company that I loved, because I had made a lot of promotions in a very short period of time, starting from an entry level making something like $54 a week. In 1 year, I had gone from lead clerk to supervisor, and here I was, like maybe a year and a half later, 2 years later, becoming area manager and EVP. So going back after the accident was really challenging because I had a new boss, different structure, different attitude, different everything. Given the fact I had a young child that was just barely 5 years old, it was tiring. I was getting tired. Plus, the momentum on the job had changed. New bosses, new systems, new demands, new everything. And having lost my prior boss out with kidney failure, who I worked very closely with over a number of years, was a big loss for me. And going into these new changes, younger bosses, everybody's competing for position and all that kind of stuff. We kind of lost the touch of humanity and kindness. Everybody was in a rush for power. They wanted to succeed and they wanted to do it quickly, at the cost of whomever or whatever. So it was the old boy network at work in Wall Street. Wasn't like it is now. There were few females in positions. Finally, we got the director of operation she was a female, and sort of rescued me from one situation and plugged me into another, which brought about this new promotion of area manager and AVP. And I think that was where I lost my desire and my taste, and my interest for the job, because the politics was so great, and the greed for power and position became so intense. I didn't feel like I wanted to be a part of that anymore. So a combination of transporting back and forth from New Jersey to New York, and the politics and the old boy network at Work in Wall Street, I just thought it was time to get out. So I sort of negotiated with them for a package. It wasn't quite easy, but because I had a really good work reputation and good work ethics there, some of my superior in higher places fought and got me basically what I needed to get out, and I just left.
So tell me about the first time you had the idea, the notion to do the daycare. You know, where were you? What were the circumstances? You know, what was going on when you first had that thought?
Well, you know, I really didn't have that thought at the moment. Once I left Payne Weber, took a vacation, came back, I started looking for another job. I found out my experience in Wall Street, which was a very good one. Age 49, it was really challenging to find a job at that point of my life. So I decided, what can I do? So I went to this, I attended this meeting with this idea: I am going to open a daycare center. And if I can backtrack some, my interest in children goes back to teenagers. In my home, we had a space downstairs. Our house had 2 floors, and downstairs was an incomplete area. And I would gather the neighborhood children, and I would try to teach them their alphabet, do fun things with them. Some of the mothers would just come by and just sit there and admire what I was doing with the children and thought it was so great. And actually, my first job out of high school was in a daycare center. So I had forgotten all that. As a matter of fact, it's my stepsister who lately, when I got into this daycare system, reminded me of my experience with those children way back when, where I was just maybe about 18 years of age. But anyway, I went to this workshop, and I met this woman who I believe is one of the icons of daycare in Brooklyn. And she suggested, well, it's kind of expensive going into a daycare center. And when I realized what was necessary for me to open a daycare center, it would have wiped out the resources I had, which was already depleted because I was home for a while, not working, and with 2 children. Well, anyway, she suggested, why not do it from your home? And that's how I became involved with family and group family daycare out of my home. I started, and it took a while before I figured the legality of it and realized that, you know, my ambitions were there, but the knowledge I needed to really explore this, what I consider platform for little children, wasn't there. And there wasn't much help in terms of people helping or sharing information and stuff like that, which changed my whole attitude about daycare anyway, because once I grasped the idea and the knowledge and moved on, I no longer stayed just caring for children, but I went on to learn about trading. I met this woman, her name was Tatiana Sakura. I met her along the way, and she took interest in me, thinking that I was pretty sharp, and she suggested that I take a certain training to become a trainer. So I went on, not just with early childhood and the daycare, but I went on to also getting involved in training other people to become providers for daycare. For example, last night at about 7 o'clock, I had this phone call. Okay, someone who took the latest craze now is the CDA if you don't have a degree. So it is required now that all providers have at least a CDA or an associate degree in early childhood education. That's one of the classes I have been training on, I've been teaching on for the past 20 years. And one of my colleagues taught that class. And it's strange enough that one of her students called me last night, Miss Garcia, can you help me? I'm meeting with her on Saturday because that's a national CDH, which is Child Development Associate, is a national credential run by the Professional Development in Washington, D.C. And what I do is prep them and have them prepare their portfolios for getting their credential. So here she's taken this whole 120 hours of training, yet and still she doesn't have a compiled portfolio, which is a necessity in moving forward to get your credential. So I talk to trainers like myself. I talk to other educators that are of higher level than myself. I learn, whatever I learn, I pass on. And it has caused me to grow throughout the years. So has this been fruitful? It has been very fruitful. Knowledgeable, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information I have gained within the past, and it's 30 years. It's a lot. It was really an interesting journey, which makes me now an information center, because now everyone comes to me for information. And the reason I give those information is because I remember the challenges I had trying to get my feet in the door with the daycare and get it off the ground, and not having the support. So I try to be that support for all those people that are coming in and don't really have a good sense of what early childhood is all about, but really have a passion for building the foundations of young children. So therefore, I become that information center, I became that provider, I became that trainer, and I'm able to help a lot of people in a lot of ways to help structure the lives of children, young children, so that they could become successful learners.
It's so special when we have children, young people, who have gifts, especially musical abilities. And she's going to come to the piano at this time and render us a selection.
Early childhood education it's just not a babysitting thing. It's really a foundational thing where you're putting down a foundation in each child's life. And how you put that foundation down determines how that child's success in future learning will be. So it's really very important.
So tell me about the first child that was entrusted in your care. what was that conversation like with the parents, and how did it come to be that they were trusted in your care?
I live at a certain standard in my community, so the people who knew me had some form of regards and respect for me. So when I opened the daycare, um, people began to gravitate towards me, you know. And for a long time, I had one child and then a second, both from the building that I lived in. By the way, one is finishing her master's in architecture, that's Kizzy. Um, and I think Tony, and they moved to Virginia. I don't hear from them frequently, but every once in a while, the father pops into New York. He'll call me and let me know how things are going with them. Those two children has done well. So the vast majority of children that left our program, they have gone in and become part of the gifted and talented program. And so we got engineers, we got physician assistants, we got nurses, we got teachers, we just have all these children. I don't know of any one child that have come through this daycare that is actually not amount to anything. It's either a career in some professional area, or they acquire a skill. But for most part, the parents stay connected, and I hear about these children. Some of them still live in our community. I remember children traveling from Long Island and coming into Brooklyn just to be in the program because someone told them about our program. So to sum it up, it hadn't been easy because now I had to learn the skills of advertisement. So that was something new. So it took me a while. I went through a whole financial experience during that time. But of course, I have never had a job. I always had a job and some gig on the side that would bring me in some money. So that's how I survived until I finally got the hang of what is this daycare? What does it entail? And as I pursued knowledge in that area, I began to grow. My program began to grow, and it became successful in the sense that when everybody's daycare was under capacity, I was always at capacity, and didn't even bother to keep a what you call it list, a waiting list. People ask, well, why don't you put me on your waiting list? No, I don't keep a waiting list because the children don't leave until they go to school. And by the time they're ready to go to school, they either have a younger sibling or something, so the daycare keeps feeding itself continuously. So, it's an experience. It is an experience. It has its challenges, but the rewards are just awesome.
So, allow me to follow up on something you just talked about. You mentioned financial experiences, and you didn't just have one job; you were doing multiple things. Can you talk to me about what those financial challenges were and how you managed?
Well, to begin with, two children. First, I had one child, and then the second child, whose father was very, very, very fussy, because he was a man up in age, maybe late 50s, early 60s, and here he had this first child. So I had her and I had the first kid. And of course, that was not sufficient to run my household and take care of myself and two children. So obviously, I sold jewelry. I got into precious gems. I got into selling stockings, selling clothing, whatever it took for me to support myself and my two children.
Hey, listen a minute, everybody. I got an announcement to make. It's about...
Mom.
Well,
Mom.
we'd all like to thank you very much for everything you've done for us. And we'd like to give you a little present to remember us by. Come on, Babs. You mean Miss Peg? Babs.
The time has come for closing books, and long last looks must end. And as I leave, I know that I am leaving my best friend, a friend who taught me right from wrong and weak from strong. That's a lot to learn. What can I give you in return? If you wanted the moon, I would try to make a start, but I would rather you let me give my heart to
Madame.
her with love.
About this class. For the past 7 years, we have been conducting the Child Development Associate class. It's a very long process. It requires a lot of endurance. It requires a lot of tolerance. It helps build writing skills. It entails creating a portfolio, and it's also involves with the national accreditation, meaning that with this certification, these graduating adults can move to any one of the 50 states, and they are in fact respected as child care providers and assistant teachers and teachers. In some states, they can even run a daycare program. And it's been long and it's been done, and it really takes a lot, but like Ms. Dixon said in her speech, that, you know, they get discouraged because they are expected to turn up with an autobiography and 6 competency goals that involves the 13 functional areas of early childhood development. It's not an easy process, so today I just want to take time and I want to congratulate them. I also want to take this time today to recognize the fathers that I see every day picking up or dropping off their children. And I know some of them are not here today, but those that are here, I just want to take a moment and I want to applaud them. And I think she has a little presentation to make on behalf of herself and her family.
Hi, I want to make this presentation to Ms. Garcia for opening the gateway of young minds of our children. And I will like to see her graduating class follow in her footsteps, because she's an awesome, really awesome person.
When I was young, me and my mama had beefs.
Yeah, in the phone, got nobody, I got you. Yeah, put you in a mansion, I got to. And just to see you win, I'll lose. This here is a song for my dose. Yeah, in the phone, got nobody, I got you. I wanna put you in a mansion, I got to. And just to see you win, I'll lose. This here is a song for my dose. This here is a song for my mondos. Not my auntie, not my granny, this my mom, fool. The only woman who don't lie, you beyond true. Let a nigga play with you, I did not shoot. Anything you need, know I got it for you. He'll take weight up off your shoulders, let me spot it for you. I always put in overtime, so you don't want for none. Can't let him take me out the game, I'm mama's only son. And you won't never need, cause your son got you. So you won't never need to break your heart, I'm sending slugs about you. Race the back is on your own, why you did that. Used to be upside my head when I skipped class. Remember I was your baby boy, time to win fast. Damn, time to win fast. And if I don't got nobody, I got you. Yeah, put you in a mansion, I got to. And just to see you win, I'll lose. This here is a song for my dose. Yeah, and if I don't got nobody, I got you. I wanna put you in a mansion, I got to. And just to see you win, I'll lose. This here is a song for my mind dose.
Ain't a woman alive that can take my mama's place. You always was the black queen, mama. Dear mama.